Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Film Faction podcast. I am once again joined by my wonderful hosts, OJ,
Yo.
Evan,
Hey yo!
and Lance.
Hey, Ivy.
All right.
Hey
We're-
baby.
They're apparently trying to keep up the trend of saying dumb shit at the beginning of the podcast. So,
Hell yeah.
You know you love it. You know you love it. Don't
You
act
know
like
you
you
love
don't.
for anyone who hasn't watched the first episode, just the way we do things here is we get together whenever we can and record a podcast on a film selected in the previous episode by spinning a wheel of a list of our favorite films that we've put together. And then whatever film it lands on, we watch either together or separately, compile some notes, and just have fun discussing our favorite movies and bringing up topics and discussing how they were made and all kinds of shit like that. And so we are this week's movie was Seven, which is probably all of ours. Like, I think collectively one of our top five movies as a group.
100%. Yeah.
Just because it's a fucking
110%.
classic and it's so unique. So I suppose we'll just start the discussion by going around and getting everyone's general thoughts, just like we did last time. So we'll start with Evan this time because I'm feeling gracious.
Bruv. Starting with me, wow. Well, with this movie, I loved it. Just I've watched it about 20 times in total, maybe more. I don't know.
God, we've all watched it a fucking lot of times.
Yeah. No
But
idea how much.
just the plot and just the structure that it's kind of paced at. I I don't know. It's hard to put it into words how much I enjoy this movie. Like I can go like detail how good it is, but like the villain is probably one of my favorite horror villains. Not really horror, but psychological thriller villains.
Good old
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, early work's pretty damn good.
Just
Agreed.
just pass it off to whoever you guys want to when you're done. By the way, I don't have an order.
Lance, go ahead.
Me with this movie, I had a very unique childhood when it came to cinema and games, where I was shown. Honestly, it didn't matter the rating a lot of the time when I was a kid. So I actually watched this a plentiful amount as a kid and as a growing adult. In total, I've seen this movie probably around 12 times, 13. Um, and as you get older, I mean, of course, with anything, you see more details, more things in this movie that make you appreciate it more. Um, I find this probably my favorite Morgan Freeman piece. Um, Probably one of my more favorite Brad Pitt pieces when it comes to cinema. But I around love this movie. This is probably one of my favorite. What? Because I wouldn't even consider this horror. I would consider this thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is probably maybe like my second or third favorite thriller movie. So
I'd call it a drama and a thriller.
yeah,
That's how I
less than
classify
horror,
it.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. So Matthew, your turn.
Well, I mean, same with Lance. Since we're brothers, we grew up watching stuff like this, Silence of the Lambs, stuff like that. I've seen this movie like everyone else countless times. Don't even know a number. But I mean, I never get bored watching this movie. Like I can pop it in any day of the week and be fascinated by what's on the screen.
That's pretty impressive that you can just enjoy the film that
There's
many times
yeah,
over
there's
again.
only a few movies I can do that with, and this is one of them. I don't even know why.
I can agree with that though.
Well, it's because it's unique. Like out of all the films that
It's
we've
very
watched,
different. Yeah.
and it
From all the
it
other
is a
thriller
very
movies that
unique
there
film.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have some speaking points on that, but we'll get to that. I'm in the same boat as everyone else here. I probably watched it the least out of everyone here. I think I've only seen it like 3 or 4 times,
Yeah.
including the time we watched it recently. Because I think it was you and Lance that told me to watch this the first time.
Yeah, it was.
I'm trying to remember. That was at least 2 years ago that I watched it the first time. So everyone else here has a much longer period of time that they've had to enjoy the film than I have, and I think that's gonna represent itself in a lot of different ways in the discussion today. So I'll be interested to see that. I will say that my notes were almost singularly focused on the narrative side of the movie and the theme and the plot. So I don't have a lot of comments about the cinematography. I have a few, but those are tied into the characters and the plot anyways. So I'll be interested to hear what you guys have on those topics, because I'm sure, particularly Evan, because he's a far more visual person than I am,
True.
probably noticed a lot more than I did.
I
And
have
we do have a
some.
structure to this podcast. It's fucking crazy. I know. It's insane. I
Oh,
actually
yeah.
have a structure to this podcast. We do have some categories that we're going to go over today. So our categories are characters, which is obvious. Then we have the theme of the film. We have cinematography, and we have symbolism and plot. Those are our discussion points today, and there's fucking plenty in here for us to get through. So there's no particular order. I think I'm just going to start with theme, probably because that's just the basis of all storytelling is the theme. And so I
Mhm.
actually have this set up in questions for you gentlemen, and I'll tell you because I did a lot of fucking research on how he wrote this movie. I probably watched like 3 interviews with the director and the screenplay writer, um,
Hot.
talking about how they approach it. So a lot of the stuff I have in here is directly from their mouths. So I'm just curious to hear what you guys think. So
Okay.
um,
Serious enough.
I'm gonna start with a quote from a really good book that I read. And it's not only does character arc directly influence story structure, it is also a direct influence on theme. In some respects, even could be said that character arcs equal the theme of a story. Um, and Seven's theme like has its obvious stuff, right? It has morality and religion and philosophy, but I'm curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are on what the overarching theme is, because I will give you a hint. The theme of the story, at least the intended theme, is literally said in the film in a line. It's in the film. They say it. So I'm curious to see if anyone's caught it. So we'll just go around. I don't care who goes first.
Hmm.
So I guess the question is, what do you think the central theme of Seven is? It was a long silence.
Well, I mean, once you say it like that, I'm going through the whole movie in my head.
I mean,
Corruption.
it's morality, I'd say.
Yeah, you think it's a like thesis on the morality of man?
Yeah, like I find that Brad Pitt is like stuck between like good and evil. Like Morgan Freeman, he's not like the existential good. Um, like he's not a perfect person, but he's much more good than the serial killer. So I find that Brad Pitt's like stuck between these two grounds, like anyone else in this world.
I find that almost every character in this film is not intrinsically a good person. Like I
Yeah.
think probably the closest
Even
one to a
Morgan
good
Freeman's
person,
character.
his
Yeah.
character has done some fucked up shit.
He's very unapathetic.
No, he's very
Yeah.
apathetic. No, apathy is the word you're looking. Not unapathetic.
Wait,
You're
which
thinking
Okay.
I didn't
empathetic.
hear you. Which
Yeah.
character?
Morgan Freeman's character, Somerset.
Oh, I got you.
So apathetic is the lack of care for a situation. Um, I can look up the actual definition. I'm sure it's a little bit off, but you were thinking
No,
empathy. He's
you're
very
right. Yeah.
unempathetic. So he doesn't really care. In fact,
Yeah.
at the start of the film, he literally it's displayed literally through the cab ride that he's having. The guy asks where you're going, and he says, "Far from here." He's
Yeah.
become increasingly apathetic towards the city they live in, and I have a point about that. But we're gonna keep going around about what people think the central theme is, and then we'll go through all that.
I feel like he's super wise and he's just become super wise over the years. Yeah.
All right. Evan thinks it's the morality of man. Who's the next one that's gonna take a shot?
I mean, what I think it symbolizes is something else than the theme. I think the theme is corruption.
Hmm.
Is symbolism one of your subjects?
It is, yeah. I do have symbolism.
Yeah.
in
Okay.
here.
Then we'll get to. I'll talk about that part later, not now. I think it's corruption. Honestly, because it's Kevin Spacey's character. Um, and in the end, towards he does talk about the corruption of human society and us as humans.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but also, I think it's corruption of Brad Pitt's character, because I think he, in the beginning, I think we see him as a cop who's eager to get into the field, eager to clean up the city, eager to put people behind bars. Um, but then we slowly see him worn down by the antagonist in this movie. We see
That is
him
super
slowly,
interesting.
slowly just torn down to the
Yeah.
point of where he gives up on all of his morals, all of his rational thinking, because of how much he's of what has gone on in his life. And I
Mhm.
think in the end, that's the peak. That's the most you can ever break a human, is that point where Brad Pitt's character breaks and lets the antagonist win.
That is super interesting, and I'll explain why later, because if I say it right now, it'll spoil the answer to the question. So we will touch back on that, because you're right. The corruption of character and the way that Mills changes as a character through the story is very important to how
Mhm.
they plotted out the narrative. So OJ, what do you think the theme is?
I mean, I don't know.
You just can't
Everything.
even.
I mean, after hearing what Evan and Lance say, shoot,
So you're just
it's hard.
you're just a blank fire. You can't really place your thumb on
I
what
Two
you
mean,
think the
blanks right
theme
now,
would be.
dude.
There is a
like
lot in the film, so I do understand that
yeah.
point of view. Because now that I said, like, it's in the film, like it's a statement in the film. You're going through every single line in your head trying to figure out which one makes the most sense.
Hmm.
So you just want to take a non-applicable here. Is that the box you want to
Yeah.
check? All right.
Want to hear it?
So the theme of the story was a line that in the first draft of the script was actually at the beginning of the film, and it ends up being the final line of the film.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yep.
and it's the world is a terrible place and worth fighting for. That's the intrinsic theme of the film.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so you were both partially correct, actually. Um, I think that both corruption and the morality of people, particularly in this story, falls under that scope. Um,
Yeah.
so the the dialogue that Lance you had about Mills being corrupted by the city and breaking as a person, it's funny because that plays a lot into the dynamic that his character is built into. So there's we have the protagonist, which is Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, and his character trait is apathy. So I mean that's very clear. He's super apathetic. He's cynical. He's repulsed by the apathy he sees around him, and therefore becomes engulfed in apathy for the city. Um, he believes he can no longer go on fighting the city's sinful nature. He doesn't have any fight left in him, and that's displayed um, by him, you know, wanting to quit the police force because he doesn't think he can fight it anymore. Whereas Brad Pitt's character is what's called the partner. Um, so it plays into the cliche of two partners that are fundamentally different, disliking each other. In the film, Mills actually says that he requested an assignment to this city, which is repeatedly referred to as disgusting and rotten and terrible. And in a lot of ways is actually the real protagonist of this story until we meet Kevin Spacey. I think is the city is what they're fighting against until Kevin Spacey is revealed as
Yeah.
John Doe.
Yeah.
But it generates great conflict between the two, which is another big narrative point. And they have a core disagreement in their values. So like as opposed to Somerset, Mills he's the exact opposite. He's choosing to fight. He wanted to be reassigned to the city that Somerset despised, and that displays their fundamental separation of core values. And throughout the story, right up until the end, I think, where Lance is correct, I think that Mills does break. But throughout the story, Somerset and Mills, while they were on opposite ends of the character spectrum, are pulled closer together because Mills starts to reignite Somerset's passion for fighting for what's good, which is displayed by him staying on the case instead of quitting when he was supposed to, getting involved and wanting to see the case through the end. He wants to continue fighting, whereas he didn't want to before. And there's the bar scene where Somerset gets called out by Mills, which he calls him out because what Mills says is the problem with people is that they. Oh wait, hold on. Oh yeah, the problem with people is that they don't care. So I don't care about people. That makes no sense. I don't think you quit because you believe the things you're saying. I think you want to believe them because you're quitting. Which is one of the best lines in the movie, I think. So everyone was partially correct, to be honest, except for OJ, who didn't answer.
Yeah, what the fuck?
And then I mentioned in a previous conversation, John Doe, played by Kevin Spacey in the final act of the film. He's the dark mirror, is what they call it in narrative design of Somerset. He's on a thematic spectrum, right? So imagine there's a line. Mills is on the far right, Somerset's on the far left, and even further left of Somerset is John Doe. So Somerset and Mills are direct opposites, and their values display that. But Kevin, as usual with all good antagonists, I mean the Joker from the Dark Knight trilogy displays this really well. He has very similar values and goals to the protagonist, but he's far more radical about how he goes about achieving those goals. The Kevin Spacey's character is driven by disgust for the city and the people in it. The same disgust that Somerset has. He's just, he's fucking crazy. And he says that his dialogue in the back of the car, you see deadly sin on every street corner, in every home, and we tolerate it because it's common, it's trivial, and we tolerate it morning, noon, and night. This is a literal representation of how similar to Somerset he is. So everyone was technically right. Let me keep checking, make sure I didn't miss anything. Discuss your thoughts on that. Do you guys think that that's what you got from the message of the film? Do you think they properly portrayed that message to people?
I feel like they did, and what Lance said, I was thinking the literal exact same thing, literally the exact same thing about Mills coming, like, being torn down throughout but also brought up by Summer. And it's fascinating to kind of start to see that after all the times I've seen it.
I just thought Lance's comment about Mills breaking being the theme of the story is super interesting because he was right. Like it is a very important part of the story, but because Mills breaks, it allows Somerset to complete his character arc. So like at the end, he's asked where you're going to be, and instead of saying far away, he says around, implying that his will to fight has ignited, and that despite, not because of the events, but despite the events that occurred, he has changed in a positive way from confronting the antagonist and being partners with Mills, despite Mills breaking, because Mills reminded him that there's good things in the world to fight for. It's a very long silence there.
Blame yourself.
A lot of thinking going on.
Indeed.
And I mean the part where Somerset says, the line at the end, the theme line, he says, I agree with the second part. He doesn't necessarily agree the world is a good place. In fact, he openly admits that he thinks it's a terrible place. But at the end, he's still willing to fight for it, and he wasn't willing to do that at the beginning. So that's pretty much like his entire character arc, really. Which
he's not going to give up like Kevin Spacey's character did.
Kevin Spacey's character did give up. That's why he's the Dark Mirror.
Yeah.
He gave up because he himself started to sin.
Yeah, he was a mortal sinner.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He even said he was envy. He was envious of what Mills had, which was a big plot. Can we just discuss like the cinematic impact of that finale? Like the climax of the third act.
The music was
the music was
so
pretty good. That music was pretty hype.
It just fits so well.
I would have to say.
So intense and just
big agree.
I mean, it has to be like one of the most suspenseful climaxes of like all film history, right? Because
Yeah.
like he's
Yeah.
caught,
Right.
right? Like they have Kevin Spacey, but the way that he's
Perfectly
acting,
calm.
yeah, you're like, how can he still win, right? Like you're trying to figure it out the whole time,
It was
and
like
then
a
way
checkmate when he
yeah.
walked into the station,
the
basically.
way the sun is like shining on
Oh
him.
yeah, I had that the
Oh.
the
Yeah.
ending where the sun halos his head as he's about to
Mhm.
achieve his religious victory.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
Yeah,
like he's
I
an
never
angel.
noticed that.
I know.
And like
I missed it the first few times.
every time in that last scene when he's on his knees, every time the camera's on him, it's perfectly still.
And it's
He's
shaky
calm.
on Mills.
Yeah, shaky.
Bro, we are fucking on the same wavelength, dog.
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite details, dude, is because I didn't notice it at all until we rewatched it. Then
Yeah,
I was like,
I
why
like
is
that
the
scene.
camera so shaky when it's on Mills, and it reflects their like emotional and mental state is pretty genius.
I love how camera work can do that. It's so subtle, but it works so well.
David Finch is super underappreciated. I think he
Oh, I agree with that.
he does something that not a
I
lot of
agree.
directors do. Like he respects us. Like he respects the audience's capability of figuring something out.
Yeah,
And he
does his research.
yeah, well he displays that like through the whole film. There's a bunch of the small things that I think make the film so engaging. Like they trust us to understand. Like he gives us
Yeah.
just enough so that we can visualize it. Like
Yeah.
the opening credits, we see like all those disturbing scenes where he's filing his nails, but just as it's about to get really creepy, it just cuts to the next clip and
That's
leaves
my
us to our
favorite
imagination.
opening of a movie.
I don't think I've seen one that keeps me engaged like that. Usually I just blank out
And
over the openings of movies.
we're like every time we have to do like 2D animation at my school, like from these past 2 years, we were always showed that clip with like lettering and stuff. It was I've loved it ever since like I saw it. But when they brought it up in school, I was like, fuck yeah. Like they're appreciating David Finch and the designer behind that because it was so good.
Yeah, it's probably the best opening scene to a movie I think I've probably ever seen. I don't think anything else has held my attention the way that it does.
Yeah, even the music within it too was
Yeah.
so like it
So
held
different.
it held its own.
I suppose that puts us in the cinematography category.
I guess that's a good transition. I guess.
Yeah, I mean we already discussed like the shaky cam and stuff. Is there anything else anyone noticed? Lance has not spoken in a long
Cinematography
time.
wise, no.
Really,
You know what
you
I was
didn't?
about to speak. You know what I was about to speak. Did you know
You were
that?
uncharacteristically quiet. Okay, I was just
Did you
doing
know?
a
That's
welfare
true.
check.
That's true. I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. Cinematography wise, no, but I think that's because like that's really not my strong suit in when I'm dissecting film, mainly because I don't know. I'm mainly probably because I'm going doing a lot of more writing as of recent, so I'm really just focused on plot and screenplay wise rather than cinematography wise. That's probably why a little bit of bias
That's very fair.
when dissecting on that part.
Yeah.
I have to try pretty actively hard to catch stuff when I watch movies like that. Every once in a while there'll be one
Mhm.
shot that's just like, ooh, that's the one right there.
Right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
it
I'm
right.
just
same for
catches
that.
you like
But
a
I think there was
freaking.
so many of those shots in this film that it just became normal, right? Like you just don't. I'm trying to think of one shot that really like caught my mind in this film, and I can't think of one. Like not like
Yeah.
Psycho, like
Um,
the bathroom shot that really got me good.
I
There's
mean,
not
like you
really
said,
iconic shots in this movie.
Not really. It's just mostly the story, I
Iconic
think.
scenes.
There's a lot
like
of
the
really
end.
good things he does
That was about it.
cinematically, like keeping things
Yeah.
from us. Like David Finch's
Yeah,
philosophy is less is more, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
he always
Simple
gives
the
us
better.
just enough. Which ties back into the city thing I was talking about. The setting is really important in this film,
That
which
place sucks.
well, it's fascinating because I think part of the reason that keeping the city like anonymous was so smart, like not having a name for it or anything to associate it with, is because we
Yeah,
know cities like Chicago and New York, right? Like those are real places and we know they have crime, but there's also positive traits associated to those
Mhm.
cities, like
Not with this
culture
one.
and yeah. All we know is that it's fucking pissing rain all the time. It's dark. It's
which
cold.
I would love.
People are terrible. Like this dude is going around murdering people. Like it's and the cops, like he even mentions that the cops are corrupt because when John Doe poses as a journalist, he says you'd be blown away by what you can get from the police by paying them some money, you know. So like the
Mhm.
corruption isn't just the city, it's in the police force.
It's
Um
everywhere. Yeah.
it's like
I've
it's
heard
all
some.
misery.
I've heard some weird theories from people for a while that this city is Gotham
Yeah,
before
I've heard
Batman.
that feeling. Yeah.
It's
Dude, that would be
very
cool though.
It
interesting.
would be pretty cool. It would be pretty cool. I mean, I don't see anything to discredit that fan theory either.
Yeah.
Beyond everyone
Yeah.
kind of just like knowing
It's
like
'cause
it's
they
probably
don't.
not.
They never tell us
Like-
where
Yeah.
this place is.
I kind of don't want it to be that.
Yeah.
in
Well,
a
because
way.
then we associate it with Gotham, and then we know, you know,
Yeah.
Gotham's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like they have Batman and Commissioner
But-
Gordon.
It's not its own thing after that.
Yeah.
It's like
But-
it's
Yeah.
not.
It would make sense because I've been keeping up with comics
True.
recently, and there's a comic issue that came out recently called Three Jokers, and the Joker goes in the prologue of it. He has a monologue where he says everyone who comes to Gotham is evil. The reason why Gotham never really has a break in crime is because people don't come here to live; they come here to be barbaric. Because I have such a reputation that I give the energy to Gotham of chaos, and that's one of my favorite Joker monologues. So I vibe with that fan theory just because that monologue I read.
I mean, that reflects like real life intention from people too. Like it's not just a comic
Yeah.
book thing. I think there's plenty of places that people go just to be shitty people because they think they can get away with it there, you know. And to an extent, they
Mhm.
probably could. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna name any places because
I'm not gonna name any places.
we all
but we
know
all
the
know.
places, right?
We
Like
all
everyone knows. Um, so yeah, it's like small pieces of the picture, man. He does a really good job with that. Like, cause imagining is always worse than seeing. Like, you can't ever like give something to people that is worse than what they put in their heads because to everyone a worst case scenario is different, right? Like, you can't ever cater
Right.
to everyone's worst case scenario, which is
It's like trying to find the common ground.
yeah.
Between that, which is
It's like the original Blair Witch Project, dude. Like the fucking scariest part of the
Oh,
film
God.
is the end where the camera drops and you hear her get fucking gatted.
I wanted to bring that up,
yeah.
like that movie, just because
Yeah, it doesn't
end of
ever.
Seven.
Yeah,
there's no satisfaction at the end of Seven. You're like,
yeah, you're
dread.
kind of just like
You feel dread.
it's one of those films I think that doesn't have a good ending, but something good comes of it. You know, Somerset doesn't
Yeah.
quit. I think a lot of people lost that in watching the film. They're like, well, this is just a shitty ending. Like,
Yeah, a lot of people didn't like Seven when it first came out.
yeah, it was not a very well liked film. Not a lot of films back then did that. Like
Yeah.
they caught a lot of shit, and in fact, they tried to force a change on the ending of the film several times.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad Pitt eventually was like, "I'm not gonna fucking do this film. Like, you're not gonna be able to do this unless you keep Finch's original ending in, because I don't want to be a part of the project otherwise."
Oh yeah, didn't you mention that when we were watching?
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Like,
Brad
Somerset
Pitt
was
was
gonna.
was a big advocate for the ending of the film the way that it was, because there was a couple other
Yeah.
endings. Like there was one where Mills didn't shoot him.
Yeah.
There was one where Somerset shot him instead of Mills, so that Mills didn't have to go to prison, which I suppose would have been an okay ending, but I think defeats the purpose of
Yeah.
the theme they were going for.
Yeah.
Because like I think at that point we all know Mills would have shot him if Somerset didn't, and
Right.
then like nobody comes out better and proving Kevin Spacey wrong. You know, it's just he just wins at that point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the lust scene, can we talk about that? That scene is fucking probably one of
Yeah.
my favorites in the whole film.
That actor who they
Oh.
question, who actually does the killing,
Yeah,
fantastic.
Dude, that was
fucking A
such.
plus.
Oh my god, it was so good.
I've
And
never
they
been
don't
more
even
convinced.
show her body. It's just left
No,
up to your
that's
imagination
another
how
yeah.
gruesome it is.
That's another example. Like we don't need to see what happened, but thinking about it is like Like we
and
get
seeing
the
all the
fucking
little
Yeah.
items.
yeah, we get the
Yeah.
device. We know that he fucked her, and we know he's freaking the fuck out, and that's all we need. It's bad.
I mean,
like that's
Yeah.
all we need to
all
know.
the other murders
Fucked.
too. We don't see how he did it.
No, we don't ever. You don't
Just
ever
the
see how he
aftermath.
did the murders. Yeah, it's always just the aftermath, which is another good play, I think, because it
I mean,
keeps the killer anonymous as well. I mean, I think for the most
Yeah.
part, like, just using an example, it's not really in the same thing, but in Tenet, um, spoiler alert for Tenet in case anyone hasn't seen it and wants to, the scene where he comes out of the turnstile the first time and fights himself, and you don't know it's him. I knew
Yeah.
immediately that it was
Yeah.
him because I could see like his face through his face mask. Like I knew that it
Really?
was, yeah, I could
Oh,
tell.
really?
Like it was pretty obvious to me, and I saw some of
I
his
can
his
totally
skin
tell.
You got some good
through
eyes,
his.
mate.
Yeah, no,
I
I
pay
didn't even
attention to
notice.
that shit. Like I just pay attention to it, especially in
I'm
films
just
like that.
lost in the sauce at that point, bro. I'm just
I'll be like, all
oh,
right,
fuck.
something's not fucking right about this because this seems way too fucking convenient. So then I get super like over analyzing the scene. I try to
Yeah.
ruin the film for myself. But
I
like,
I just when that started to come, like when he started to fight him, I was like trying to find like the how they were fighting in reverse. That's all I was looking
I
for
mean, you could
in any
tell. Like the
sequences.
one other big giveaway is the leg sweep that they try to do
Yeah.
like 3 times. It's the same move. Like
Oh my god.
it's the
But
exact same.
yeah,
It's crazy how
it was kind of
they
predictable.
trained to do that.
That I
I
think
know.
that part was meant to be though. But my point being,
You know
looping
what?
back to
Yeah.
I'm
Seven
really slow at finding that.
is if you give us like anything to grasp onto to try to figure it out, it's going to be
Yeah.
much less impactful when we actually figure it out with not giving. Because I think if they had Kevin Spacey in those shots, we would have been able to like okay, yeah, we know who this guy is, right? And we would have
It's our
known the
minds
journalist on the
bringing
stairs.
things together.
Like if we saw like him committing the act with gluttony, I think we probably wouldn't be able to piece together that that journalist in the staircase at Sloth was him. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that caught me off guard the first time. No fucking clue at all. Big plot
Oh,
twist for me.
same. Oh, same.
So, and then that also gives us the feeling that we are also detectives, right? Like we're trying to solve it with them instead of
Mhm.
us knowing more than them. We know exactly as much as they do, which is a fun little interactive story thing. Which is ahead of its time as well. They're starting to do a lot of interactive films, particularly on Netflix. A lot of big stuff like that's coming out.
Yeah.
True.
And it's never the
I
focus
feel
is
like
never on the
yeah.
crimes either. I think if they had shown them, it would have detracted from the
It would have
purpose
just
of the
made it a
film.
slasher movie.
Yeah, the focus is on the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I like a lot.
I
I'd
agree.
rather watch a movie on the character, and even though Psycho was really good and it was top-notch slasher film, it
I mean,
didn't
it's
really.
the slasher film, right? Like
Well,
it
yeah,
set up a
the
lot of the
top
tropes.
slasher film, and it did pretty well with character. With dude, I'm horrible with names. The main fucking killer. What's his name?
Norman Bates.
Norman Bates, and I feel like that. I don't know. It wasn't as good as Seven character wise,
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that's probably just a
but
product of its time, and
yeah,
filmmaking definitely got a lot more complicated by the 90s than it was in the
it's true.
60s because a lot of restrictions were
That's
lifted
true.
and people got smarter.
Stupid Hayes guy.
Like I'm not dissing on the older generations, but the new ones, like people, it's really hard to make a good film now because people are like you know, we have access to the information of what makes a good movie, whereas in the 60s it was
Right.
just like, oh my god, it's a film, it's fucking amazing, look at this shit, it's a moving picture.
It's a
Yeah.
moving
You know.
fucking.
And people like Alfred Hitchcock, he's undoubtedly a master of the craft, right? Like he designed what it means to be in suspense, and people like Quentin Tarantino credit a lot of their suspenseful scenes to his interviews and teachings and stuff. But you know, back then, I think he got away with a lot more lazy techniques than people could get away with now, just because people in the 60s through the 80s were a lot easier to enamor visually. Which is another topic
I can't
entirely, I suppose.
disagree with that.
I think Seven is probably one of those films that was like well more modern than just about anything else that came out in the 90s, at least in this genre.
For coming out in '95,
Yeah, at least in this genre, I agree.
There's a lot of good films that came out in the 90s that are still hold up really well today. And oddly enough, a lot of those films were not received well when they came out.
Not surprised.
Like Seven falls under the category of like Shawshank Redemption did not do well when it came out
Yeah,
at all.
I
People
heard that
didn't like
too.
that film. And then that released at the same time as like two other big movies. I can't remember their names. Forrest Gump was one of them. Forrest Gump was another one.
Was it Green Mile? Why am I thinking Green Mile?
No, Green Mile was after
it Green Mile?
Shawshank.
Yeah,
Green Mile was after, right?
I know Forrest Gump came out the same weekend as Shawshank Redemption did. They were in theaters at the same time.
People,
That's pretty cool.
yes, people didn't like Forrest Gump.
Yeah, they really
Okay.
thought it was kind of stupid, which is crazy.
Bro, Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
If you think Forrest Gump's bad, you're
Forrest Gump
genuinely
It's an
Dude.
absolute classic.
I
That
love
is-
It's a classic, yeah.
so good.
Moving on to our next category, we have symbolism. Anyone catch any symbolism? I mean, it's very symbolism heavy. I mean, come on, like the obvious stuff, like
Yeah.
the
I mean,
the
every
sins
time
and
he-
the Sims and
Yeah.
everything, but
anything else. Anyone knows anything else beyond the obvious before we get into that?
Trying to-
No, I can't really.
Mm,
see, I'm usually good with this stuff, but most of it was pretty. If I watch it over again,
There is a
I'd
few,
probably
and you
find
really have to
stuff,
look pretty
but-
hard for them. I found one with Somerset, and it's his metronome.
So, oh, you go.
his metronome.
You go first. You go first, because mine's a little bit lengthy.
For me, symbolism. This might be deep reading, but I don't think it is because if you look at it, even the picture of the movie, it's kind of the same. I think this is supposed to represent Morgan Freeman's character Somerset is supposed to be God, and I think Kevin Spacey's is supposed to be the devil, and Brad Pitt's character is supposed to be humanity.
That is super interesting. I've never
Very
heard that take
interesting.
before.
I've also never heard
So,
that.
so think
that
about
makes
this.
complete sense for what we talked about a little bit.
I mean, it
ago.
tracks.
Somerset is very, law-abiding. He's nice to the wife. I mean, I don't think I saw a rude part in that movie where he was rude
I
or
mean, he's only
out of
rude
line.
to Mills.
But
I wouldn't
that's
even
not
call
even
that.
But in
rude.
I
like
wouldn't
a
even call that
constructive
rude.
way.
That's
It was
No,
like
no,
in a
mentor.
constructive
He
Doesn't
way.
like him
mentored
because
him.
Mills is a kid and he acts like an idiot sometimes. But
But
Yeah.
but even like during the end of the movie where he was telling him to put down the gun, I know definitely some people, like some partners of that police, would just stand by and just watch
Yeah, I
him
know
kill him
plenty
because
that
he
would
killed his
just
wife.
that
Yeah.
would just let it happen. To be honest.
But instead he tried to help him. He tried to not get him in trouble. He helped his wife. He was there for his wife as a friend, even though they just met. He's a laughable character when they were able to. And as we've seen, Kevin Spacey was very tempting in the end, where he was also like, you want to do it. He kept egging him on. He's doing you could say, I mean, he's obviously the antagonist. He was evil. He was not a good character or a good person. Not a good. He was a good character, but not a good person, so to say. And Brad Pitt's character is stuck in the middle, and he was slowly getting corrupted. So yeah, that's my view. Is
very interesting.
There's a lot that lines up
I like
there
that.
beyond what you went into.
Yeah.
Like Somerset, the way that he even like the city then would be Earth, right? It would
right?
be
Yeah,
it would be Earth, right? And so he views Earth, and the people that live in it are disgusting, and it's like a story of God losing faith in humanity, despite it being his creation,
Yeah.
which I suppose some people would call blasphemy, but whatever. But like he loses faith in the city, becomes apathetic, and then he sees a glimmer of hope in humanity in Mills, and attempts to preserve that glimmer of hope by helping Mills be the best version of himself that he can be, and then the devil Kevin Spacey, ultimately gets to him, in a very understandable way. I mean, I think everyone can
Yeah.
empathize. I certainly would have shot the fucker. I probably wouldn't have made it as long as Mills did, to be honest.
Yeah.
right.
I might have been probably quite a bit more brutal. But even after Mills, falls, it reignites, his need to continue fighting for the world. And like the clearly like the abandonment at the start of the movie, him saying far from here, and then him coming back to Earth at the end by saying he'll be around. That's a very interesting take. I haven't heard that. It
Yeah.
tracks. It definitely tracks.
Yeah.
And, it's only reinforced by the very clear religious implications.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That's a fucking hot take. That's a
Nice
hot one,
job,
boys.
lads.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
We shoot, boys. We
Beats
shoot.
my
and we
fucking
score,
metronome
boys.
by a mile. There's so Somerset uses his metronome to fall asleep, right? He uses it to block out the sounds of the
Oh,
city and
that's
stuff.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
after the scene where in the bar where Mills calls him out on his bullshit that night and he's trying to go to bed, he can't quite go to sleep, and he takes his metronome and he
Yeah.
literally destroys it. And a lot of the stuff I read and did research on said that the metronome was a symbol of his apathy. Like he just didn't want to be involved in the city. He used it to distance himself from everyone else that was there. And when Mills, was like, I don't think that you actually don't give a shit. I think that you don't give a shit because you're quitting, kind of thing. Um, he destroyed it, and that's when kind of his bounce back from being a non-conflicting, apathetic person. Really, I think that's probably his tipping point, is when he broke that metronome, which I thought was really interesting.
I never thought about that. Holy shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't have noticed it
about
unless
that.
I did some research,
Yeah.
to be honest.
I didn't know about the metronome thing at all.
I mean, it's awesome. I watched the movie like 5 times and I didn't catch on it until this last time. So, um,
Hmm.
OJ, did you catch any symbolism, my guy?
I mean, to the scale of Lance, no.
It's not a competition, you
I mean,
goofball.
there's not anything I can think of.
I mean, besides the obvious, right? Like the crimes
Yeah,
were.
besides the obvious religious things that happen, but
Yeah.
otherwise, no.
I mean, there's some interesting stuff in the religious things, like particularly the pride scene where the eyes are bloodied on the picture.
Yeah.
That's not.
That's greed.
That's yeah. That's not. Is that greed? Oh, it is greed. You're right.
That's greed.
You're right. It is greed.
Gosh dang it, Josiah.
I don't know.
When
I
he
get those
wipes
two
What are
the
you
blood
scenes.
doing?
over his wife's eyes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is interesting. I didn't
Silly
really
goose.
understand how that was associated, to be honest. I don't know if one of you did, but
Wait, why that guy was greed?
no. Why he put
Why
blood
the
over the
eyes
wife's
were-
eyes? Yeah.
Well, they talk about it in the movie. When
Did
they
they?
look at the picture of her, they say when like they're at Mill's house, like after that dinner they
Uh-huh.
talk about, it's like, what if it's something she's supposed to see but haven't been given the chance yet? Then they go over and rush over to where she is in the safe house and ask her if she sees anything in the photos, and then she notices that the picture in her husband's office was upside down.
Oh, that's right. And wasn't
She was the clue on how to figure out who the
Silly,
next
silly
victim was.
Josiah.
wasn't
Because
the picture aimed at the thing on the wall too?
what do you mean?
Like the image of his wife wasn't facing towards where he would be sitting. It was faced outwards
Yeah,
towards
it
the
was
wall.
facing
Yeah.
towards
Yeah.
the picture.
Yeah. Interesting. I probably honestly I think that if this was a real situation, detectives probably would have picked up on that one, to be honest. That's like a
Yeah.
that's like a puzzle game clue right there. I suppose it was the 90s, I guess. They didn't really have experience with that kind of thing, but like a picture or something looking
I
where
mean,
you're
in a
supposed to
city
go.
like that,
I guess.
that'd
Yeah,
be
like
on your
it's like the
toes.
statue pointing to your next objective kind of thing, you know?
Mhm.
I'm trying to think. I mean, Lust was yeah.
Lust was lust. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that shit was they didn't really need to put any more in
Great
there
scene.
than they did. Good scene. The cop vomiting
Yeah.
was
The interrogation scene was good.
He was
oh
that
yeah.
guy. The guy who played the victim. Yeah, that was great.
I
Great
don't think
acting.
I've ever been more convinced that someone killed someone else with a blade dildo. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, 100%. I've never.
he really
He
did
should have won
make
an
that
Oscar,
whole.
bro.
He did like the sweat, Like the way his body moves,
my
like his
God.
shakiness, his
The
eyes, like
shaking, yeah,
just
His
his
voice,
eyes,
though,
man.
and
Yeah,
just like how he,
yeah.
how he broke up his
He-
Like he
words.
was haunted by what
Yeah.
happened.
I wonder what that guy's doing now. I'm gonna look it up.
I mean,
I
I've
wonder
seen him
what
in other
he
things.
did to
He's in
get
Saving
into
Private
that.
Ryan for like 2 seconds.
Let me.
I wonder
Was he? Did
what
he get
had to
gatted?
do.
No, he was the
Wasn't he commander?
when
Wasn't
they
he like
show
a
up
captain?
at that like he was a pilot and he was talking to them like talking
Pilot.
why the plane went
me-
down with that
Officer
genie that
Davis.
bolted it to the floor.
I do not remember him.
He was
Yeah, you're right,
Leland
you're right,
Orser.
yeah.
Let's see what he's got
Because I
going
know I've
on.
seen him in other stuff.
Let's
I
see
gotta
what
watch
he's
that
got
movie again.
doing. He's been in Alien Resurrection. He's in that.
Really?
Yuck.
He's in The
Yuck.
Bone Collector.
Bone Collector.
I've
No
not seen
idea.
that film, but I have heard the name before.
Does sound familiar.
He's in a lot of TV shows. A lot. He's in American Gigolo. So do with that what you will. It's not out yet, but it's filming. He's in pre-production for a
everything.
film or a TV series called Blind Spotting. That's also 2021.
Blind
Um,
spotting.
Wait, that's a
Well, that's familiar.
isn't that a movie?
I don't know.
It sounds like a movie.
It's a upcoming TV show though in 2021.
Oh, or is it Train Spotting?
Train spotting.
Train
Yeah.
Spotting is the one you're
No.
thinking of.
Spotting.
I was like, what the
We're a bunch of idiots.
freaking dumbasses? Fuck.
There is a
Alright.
movie. Actually, no, there is a
Question.
movie called Blind Spotting that he was also in 2018.
Oh shit.
He's
That's
in
funny.
Taken.
Well, Evan, he isn't taken. I remember he's Liam Neeson's friend.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, his security friend.
He's
Dude,
in
I've
Taken
seen
2
Taken
as well.
like twice, and that's it.
Taken's a good movie.
I
Yeah,
never.
it's a good film.
I like the first one.
He's in all the
other-
Taken
Yeah,
films.
the rest of them suck. The rest of them are awful.
Trying to see. He's in Daredevil.
Oh yeah, he is.
He's in Pearl
Okay.
Harbor, the 2001.
That
Yeah,
movie
Man's
sucked.
got a
That
resume.
movie was not
Yeah,
super
yeah,
great.
Sucked.
Dude, I fucking loved it.
Yeah, Saving Private Ryan. He's in Star Trek Voyager.
I'm not a big Star Trek guy.
I'm not
Yeah,
either,
same.
but that's a big name. He was
Good
in
for him.
Independence Day, 1996.
Oh,
Yeah, he was techie / medical assistant #1. So
oh.
my man was
Poggers.
doing good.
Good job.
He was
got
in
a good
another
spot
Star
there.
Trek. He was in Seven in '95. He was in the X-Files.
Never watched it.
He was in Golden Girls,
What?
1991.
Was he like 12 years old? Oh no, he wouldn't be 12 years old.
The
He would
Case of
be-
the
No, he-
Libertine Bell.
He was like
Man, he grew up
12 years
fast.
old.
He was
Yeah, he
in
grew up fast,
His
bro.
earliest job was in 1991 for a TV series called Gabriel's Fire. He was in the episode Belly of the
Never
Beast
heard of
playing Edward. Never heard of it.
Edward.
Edward Richtofen?
Well, there you go.
I'll
There's
just,
me going off on a random
Edward
fucking
Norton?
tangent.
All right. Oh wait, well, okay. What's the next?
Whatever.
Unless
Just go
we're
with
still
it.
talking about this.
Just go with it.
Um,
I don't care.
Boys, besides the last scene in the movie, what is your favorite scene in the movie?
Ooh.
Mine is very
Wow.
different, but I'll go after all of you.
Okay. Let me think about it for a second.
Same. I have one. I'm just trying
When he
to
turns
search.
himself in.
Okay.
That is a good scene.
He turns himself in.
The shout he
It's a
does is
solid.
like rattling, to be honest.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey
Like,
sold
that's-
that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
That's
just
my
one of my
fave.
favorite lines in a film. Probably it's just him fucking screaming at him.
I don't know. The whole
Screaming.
chase sequence.
That's pretty good.
That
when they
is a
caught
good
him
one.
out his,
Yeah,
Yeah.
apartment.
Brad Pitt broke his arm doing that.
he
That's
did.
why it's
Yeah,
cast
I
in the
heard
movie.
about that,
It wasn't
yeah.
supposed to be, but they put it in. It
You're
worked.
like, all right, well, he actually broke his arm in the film, I guess.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
Dedication.
Yeah. So,
Fucking dedication.
and you know,
Josiah?
Kevin Spacey sparing his life. It's probably a tie between the very start of the film, that sequence of shots of Somerset going to work,
Mhm.
and the
Oh, yeah.
interrogation scene after the lust scene. Probably is probably a tie between those two for me.
Okay, you guys are gonna think I'm weird, and the only reason this is one of my favorite scenes is because of what Somerset says during it. It's the scene when Somerset and Mill's wife are in the diner, and she tells him she's pregnant. But his line of dialogue when he talks to her, because she says to him that she might not want to have it because this place sucks, and she doesn't want to raise a child in this horrible environment.
Oh, his line about, to this day, I think I made the right decision, but I also spend every day wishing that I hadn't. That
Yeah,
line. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a
And
good fucking line.
then he tells her that if you don't have the baby, don't tell Mills ever.
Yeah.
And then he says, but if you do, love it like you've never loved anything before, or something like that.
Yeah. Man, that's a good fucking scene.
That is a good scene.
I like
Holy
that scene.
shit.
That's probably the most like real character. That and the bar scene are probably some of the
Mhm.
best character building scenes in the entire film. Because it's just
Yeah.
people being people. Like I'd say it's the scene where they're eating together in the apartment would be another one, but it's a little bit different because that's not a one-on-one scene. It's a scene where it's three people enjoying an evening as opposed to two people having very real human conversations with each other.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
almost kind of putting on a persona.
Oh, there is a social like standard when you're in more than a group
Yeah.
of two, and
Mhm.
we're probably the exception to that by now. Like I don't really give a shit if I'm a gross little goblin in front of you guys, but
I
We're all
agree.
gross little goblins. To be
this
honest.
shit,
We all
yeah,
get
we've all been
fucking
goblins with
roasted.
each other before,
It's
so it's
insane.
not like it's a big deal.
Good
Um,
God.
so, but to someone you just met, like your new partner and his new wife, like you put on a social appearance.
Mask. Yeah.
Yeah, I do
Mhm.
that with my grandparents still. Like
Same.
my
Oh,
grandparents
hi,
can never know
Grandma.
the unshaven creature that I am that lurks in the basement. Like, so
Fucking hell.
I would agree that that is a
Those
very. I
frat
don't think you're
boys.
weird for that one. In fact, I'm kind of jealous I didn't even think
It's
about
just
it.
very
Yeah,
different.
that's not fucking weird, dude. I feel like that whole dialogue sequence was amazing.
It's a testament to how good they did the characters in this movie. There's not a lot of films where like people would be like, yeah, I just like this film where they're sitting there talking.
I'm a huge dialogue fan.
Oh, have you've
Same.
seen The Social Network, right? By Andy
Oh, yeah.
Serkis? Yeah, dude, he
Great
is
movie.
a fucking masterclass of dialogue between characters, dude.
Mhm.
I watched an interview with him the other day. It's fascinating. He talks about how like he purposefully writes like vocal hiccups into his dialogue. So like
Huh.
characters stuttering and stuff and like pausing weirdly.
Yeah.
So and he said the only reason it worked is because Jesse Eisenberg is a fucking animal.
Yeah, he has a speech impediment. I
Yeah,
forgot.
so Jesse
Really?
Eisenberg did it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never really read into him because I don't know. I'm not really a huge fan of him. I guess.
Yeah.
I love Jesse Eisenberg. I think he's one of
I
those
mean,
people.
I like his movies. I just never really got into.
I think he's just an actor
Yeah.
that was born to play certain roles, Like I don't think I could ever watch a film where Jesse Eisenberg played like the manly hero, Like that's just not
I
Yeah.
Right.
mean,
believable at this point.
what's that fucking action movie that he's in?
He's in
Die
that-
Hard?
Oh,
I think he's in
it's like
Die
an
Hard.
action comedy.
the
that
crappy
one with-
one.
What's her name from
Oh,
Like
Twilight?
30 minutes to or
10
30
minutes or
American-
something.
30 minutes or less. There's
30
one where
minutes
he
or
actually
less.
has powers.
Yeah.
It's with that one chick from Twilight. I can't remember what it's
Chick
called.
ass?
It's American something.
American
like-
Ultra? American
Oh,
Ultra?
American
Oh,
Ultra.
dude, that
Ultra,
film is
yeah.
fucking funny. I love
Yeah.
that film. It's so funny.
There
I don't
was-
know
I
if
haven't seen that one. I've only seen
I'd
the
call
30
it a
minutes
good
or less.
film, but it's an enjoyable watch.
It was a fun watch when I
In
watched it.
Zombieland. I like Zombieland.
That's
Zombieland's
true.
pretty
Zombieland's
That was
good.
entertaining.
good.
Yeah, but he's just the awkward, like teenage kind of strong boy, Even then, he's not the macho
True.
man.
Yeah.
I still like him in there.
Even
he
as
tries
Lex
to be.
Luthor,
He tries to. Oh,
little,
true.
little weasel.
That's true,
Little
but he played
weasel.
Lex Luthor really well.
I did enjoy him as Lex
I
Luthor.
thought he did a
Same.
really
Yeah.
good job.
Even though that movie sucked.
I
It was
agreed.
entertaining.
It was
I agree.
entertaining. I
can't
don't
say
think
it
it
was
sucked, but it
If you
was
rewatch
good.
it, it's so.
It's
Dialogue
very.
is
The reason I don't like it is because it jumps a lot and really fast
true.
between a lot of different characters, and I think that Justice League also suffered from that issue quite a bit.
Justice League
Don't worry,
was
it's gonna be
worse.
4
It was so
hours.
much worse.
And I
Don't
think
worry.
that's why I'm so excited for Zack Snyder, is because now he actually has time to fucking let the movie breathe instead of cutting between.
yes.
Oh, it's gonna breathe for a
And
while.
I've heard like bullshit like stuff like, oh, they did that because it's meant to reflect comic panels cutting to one another, and I was like, that's not the
No.
case.
Mm-mm.
There's plenty of movies
Cutting
that have done that, like Into the Spider-Verse, like
completely
that is
different.
almost actually shot for shot like from a comic book, and they
Yeah.
didn't have that issue at all. It's just a failure to create cohesive transitions between
Sin
narrative
City.
plot points.
Or yeah, Sin City. I was about
Sin
to say
City's great.
Sin City's
Yeah.
Sin
great.
City's also supposed to be comic wide, like
Yeah.
comically,
Watchmen
like
didn't suffer from
script
that
and
either.
Stylized.
screenplay wise.
Watchmen
Oh,
didn't
fuck
suffer
yeah.
from that at all. There was lots of different shit going
Oh,
on, hopped
Watchmen's
between a
so
bunch of
good.
different characters, but I never felt disjointed from the overall story because of it.
See, yeah, jump cuts and like cutting quickly does not. I actually just talked about this in my graphic novel class. Like it, I guess you could say it's a good representation of a comic book, like cutting from panel to panel, but I don't. It doesn't work as well as it does in a comic book.
Doesn't
Yeah.
It's just
Seven feel like it could be based off of like a dark visual novel?
oh,
Am
that
I
would
crazy?
honestly.
The stuff that I've read, absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh
like
yeah,
it really feels like it, doesn't it?
I
And I
kind of
think it's an
wish it was
original
one.
story. I think it's an original story. I don't think it's based on anything, but I could be wrong.
It's probably a amalgamation of
I
different
had the
stuff.
script open the other day. If it's based on something, it'll be on the title page, but I don't have it open right now, so otherwise
That'd
I'd
be
check.
good as a graphic novel,
I agree. I think if someone took it
Probably a lot more
and took the time,
graphic too.
yeah,
though.
they'd have a lot more freedom to run away with it, I think. It'd be very interesting. I
Mhm.
bet Brad Pitt would fucking love
True.
it. He's into shit like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Also, boys, did you know? So, Josiah might have, because he did a lot of research. The original cast wasn't going to be Morgan Freeman or Brad Pitt.
really?
Who was it
It
supposed
was
to be?
going to be Al Pacino and Denzel Washington.
Really? I don't think it would have been as
Yes.
good.
Whoa.
Trash. That would. I love
don't
the
think that
actors.
would've been
Would have
good.
been bad. Would
I
have
don't
been
think
bad.
it would have been as good, but I don't think it would have been trash.
I don't think
because-
Al Pacino could have been a convincing Mills.
It wouldn't have
No,
been as
Al Pacino
memorable.
would have been Somerset.
Oh,
Denzel would have been Mills,
Oh shit.
because Denzel's younger than Al Pacino.
I don't know if I like that. Maybe that's just because I'm so
Yeah, I
used to
don't
Morgan
know.
Freeman
I don't
being
know.
Somerset.
I don't
Yeah.
remember why Al Pacino said he didn't do it, but Denzel, whenever he's asked, he's like, "Oh, I regret that till the day I die."
I feel like he could have been a good Mills though.
Yeah, he plays a good, like in Training Day. He plays a
Younger
good hothead.
younger Denzel, yeah, I think he could have pulled it off pretty
'Cause this
well.
was '90s Denzel, and
Yeah,
he's just a little bit older than Brad Pitt.
yeah, he's probably, yeah, he's not that much older than Brad Pitt. Yeah, that would have been good. I'm still not feeling Al Pacino though. I don't.
The whole
Yes.
alternate.
I
I mean,
love
I've seen
Al
Al
Pacino.
Pacino play
right
detective
there.
before in Insomnia.
I've never seen
That
that
is-
film. So,
Yes,
It's a
Insomnia.
Christopher Nolan movie.
oh,
pretty
I like
good.
Christopher Nolan though.
Yeah.
He's very quickly becoming pretty high on my list of favorite actors, to be honest. Siri, shut up. I'm not talking to you.
Owned. Actually owned.
Get fucked, Siri.
Get absolutely
I'm
wrecked.
kind of blown away that
Shit.
we have pretty accurately fit this in and talked about all the stuff we wanted to talk about with a minute and a half to spare.
Hell yeah. With like
I thought we were
other
gonna be
movies
tight for
we
time.
talked about too.
I mean, yeah, we've talked
Interesting.
about it.
Interesting fact time.
All right.
Yep, hit it.
Interesting fact time. I did ask El Padre, a father who was previously a lawman for years. Asked him. He's seen the movie. He loves that movie. I asked him realistically if that were to happen, jail time. What are we looking at? He said they'll get him on manslaughter. But they will leniency, like we talked about while we were watching the film. Leniency for him being an officer. Leniency for his wife and child dying. And they would probably they wouldn't give him insanity. They would give him heat of the moment. So
Yeah.
it was rough for him
think
to
that's what I said.
range the years, but he said probably 3. Probably 3. He could get off in 2.
That's really not terrible.
But it's a lot of leniency because they could easily convince the court. Heat of the moment trauma.
Well, here's the
Like
question.
Oh yeah,
PTSD
because
Do you
his
really
wife's
think-
head was just a few yards away.
Do you
Yeah,
really
they
think
could prove
that
it.
that Mills would have accepted that as a plea? Do you think, or do you think he would have just let himself go to jail?
I think he would not have cared at all.
What does
what
he
happened.
have
Yeah.
to go back
I
to
know.
if he gets
He
At
has
out?
that
nothing.
point,
Well, I
he's
mean,
probably
unless Kevin
so.
Spacey didn't kill his dogs, some
I mean, I
dogs,
guess
but he probably killed the dogs.
he probably wasn't
He
thinking
probably
about it.
killed
If I'm
everything,
being
yeah.
real,
Yeah.
there was a version of the ending where the heads inside the box weren't his wife's but his dog's heads, which
Garbage.
would have been stupid.
Garbage.
I mean,
That's
I would have
awful.
killed him, but it didn't have the same narrative impact.
Yeah.
It was just them
Yeah.
trying not to make the ending so brutal. It's interesting. I don't think he would have pled for leniency though. I think he probably would have just
He would have just
went
let
for
it
it.
flow.
Yeah.
Whatever
No, I
happened.
don't think not pled for leniency.
At that
They would have
point, you
just
just
gave
don't
it
care
Just gave
anymore
him maybe.
about life.
leniency.
Do you
He
think he
would
would
have
have
just left
been?
it to his lawyer.
He
to
wouldn't
do
have been
whatever.
allowed to be a police officer after that, right?
That's
Like, there's
crazy.
no way.
No, of course not.
No,
you
hell no.
can't do manslaughter and
Yeah.
get away with it.
So
And
I mean,
be a
he really
police
has
officer
nothing to
now.
go back to at that point.
Mm-mm.
He could be a
That's a tough
PI,
place, yeah.
I mean,
but you can be
Yeah.
a cop. You can be a PI without a. I mean, he already has the credentials of being a cop. He could just be hired by private people, but
But it would take some
yeah, he
time
can't
for
be.
sure.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
he
Yeah.
can't be a cop ever again.
good fact.
That's crazy.
Enjoyable,
Good fact.
unique perspective. I don't think
Yes.
anyone
Mhm.
else could have gotten that information. So
Yes.
now we're authentic and people can suck my nuts.
Nutsuck, 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 nutsuck.
Let me pull up the wheel
Suck it at
so we can
nuts.
All
spin
right,
it
boys.
for next
Yes.
week's
Real
movie.
time.
Cool.
Lance, boys.
What?
Uh-huh.
Before we pull up the wheel, what would you rate 7 out of 10?
Oh,
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
Lance, go. Lance, go.
8.5.
Okay. Evan.
9.
Okay.
Okay. Josiah.
Probably a 9.
I would
Yeah.
also give it a 9.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like OJ. I can literally watch it at any time.
Mm-hmm.
I
could
would
watch
give
that
it a
anytime.
10. Only not giving it a 10 because it did feel at times the momentum slowed. Like the scenes where they
Yeah.
spent eating the dinner and the stuff like that, you know, and in a lot of these films, the best ones, like you always feel like you're being pushed. Like True Detective is like almost fucking the exact same as 7. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but the season with
The first
Matthew
season.
McConaughey and
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I've
Yeah.
never
like
seen that.
it's actually almost the exact fucking same. It's kind of scary.
Shit.
It's just a different setting
It's
and,
so
and
good.
different characters. You know, they don't struggle with the same things, but the core principles are the same. You know, that
I
one
need to
had a
watch
lot of momentum that continued through, you know, like 8 hours of TV show. But this one, you know, it just felt like there were a few parts where it just slowed down a little bit too much for me. Otherwise, I would have given it a 10. It's still a great film, and frankly, probably
Yeah.
one of the best I've ever seen. So that's why I give it a 9.
I was tempted to do a 9.5, but
I was as well.
I can't do 9.5. I can't do 10 because I don't like it as much as some other movies that I would give those scores to.
That's fair.
yeah.
I bet I
I
know.
don't know. I've never really ranked
Are
movies before.
is
so.
Interstellar one of those movies?
I mean, Interstellar is probably also a 9, maybe
Really?
9.5. Yeah. There are only
I'm-
2 movies I would give it 10.
I'm close to giving that a 10.
I'm curious to know what
be
those
honest.
movies are. What movies would you give a 10?
The Godfather. Right?
Really? Okay.
Right? I don't care.
Okay.
And Fellowship of the Ring.
All right. Yep. I respect
Oh.
that choice.
I
Mine's
ag-
Return
I
of the
agree
King,
with that.
but I respect the Fellowship choice.
Yep.
Fellowship.
The only 2.
By the way, me and OJ talked about this. If we get Fellowship on here, we're just gonna have to do the other 2 movies like the next 2 weeks, right? Like we
Yeah.
can't
Oh, of course.
we can't split up the trilogy, right?
We have to watch it all. It's all
Just 'cause-
connected, so we have to.
Yeah.
Just because none of the other 2 movies are on this.
Yeah.
We have to
series.
read the book. We have to
We do.
read
Yeah.
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 Silmarillion.
I've read
we
those
have to
books
read
like 3
everything,
times.
okay?
Would it be extended or just theatrical?
Oh fuck, I don't know, dude.
Theatrical. Come on.
Well, I mean, I have
Theatrical.
the extended, but
I
don't know if
also
wish
have
I
the
had the
extended, but
extended.
that's a lot of movie to cover in an hour.
wish
If
I
we
had
did
the
the
That's
extended, it'd have to
11
be a double
hours.
parter. Yeah.
That's
11
11
I think
hours.
theatrical is just fine. If we want to do
Theatrical.
fun facts for the extended, we can do that because
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
there's just way too much in the extended cut to cover.
11
Yeah.
hours of movie.
Hey,
I got
It's a
both
lot.
theatrical and
we're spending a
extended, so
night
I'm
watching 4.5 hours of Zack Snyder straight, so you might as well prep
Dude.
your butt for that.
That's better
excited
than
for
That might be a
that's
day
better
where
than
I
11.
might have to watch it 2 times in a day just because my cousin really wants to watch it.
That's good. That fucking
God.
makes me gag
Oh
to
my
think about
God.
I might just make her wait till the next day.
that.
4
that
hours
would be
and 1
wise.
minute.
Shoot.
All right, we're spinning the wheel. We have, I think, 18 movies in here.
All right,
so
boys. What guess? Guess what it is.
Oh.
Put your guesses now.
Uncut Gems, calling it now.
okay,
I'm gonna go The Departed again.
I'm going to Edge of 17. I'm feeling it.
Ooh,
I'm saying Fellowship just because I want it to be Fellowship.
fuck yeah.
All right, here
I
comes
was
the
right
spin.
last time. Let's see. Let's get this 2 time in a row. Let's
Come
go.
on, Uncut Gems.
Go, go, go,
Come
go,
on,
go.
baby.
Holy
That
shit,
money.
we were all off
that money.
like a motherfucker.
Oh,
What,
yeah.
All right.
what is it?
Next week's movie is Zombieland, gentlemen.
Fuck
Oh
God.
my.
yeah.
Who
That's
put
one of
that
my
in? That was
favorites.
Evan. Evan, I'll kill you.
Hell yeah, I love Zombieland. Whatever, dude.
Dude,
It's
I
a
have
fun
a lot
movie.
of movies I could have chosen, but you
We can't
took all
just
mine.
do the serious movies, you know. We gotta put
Yeah.
good fun
Yeah.
ones in there.
I'll get you, Evan.
I'll
I'll get
Get me,
fucking
bro.
get you.
Square
What, you
the
don't like
fuck up.
Zombieland?
Well,
I
it's a good
never
movie.
said that.
You see,
We could
he's
do
having a
Shaun of the
volatile
Dead.
reaction. Ooh,
Shit.
that's a classic, though.
I should have done that. Fuck.
It's a good
It don't
film.
matter. We'll get to it sometime.
Yeah, we will. It's
Yeah.
inevitable, really, that we get there.
Yeah,
I mean, it's on all of our lists, to be honest, I
Yeah,
think.
that's true.
Fuck yeah.
All right, so next week's movie is Zombieland, and I think that probably concludes this episode. We're running a little bit further than I thought we were today, but that's fine. I don't give a shit. Anyone else got any closing comments?
No,
Um,
comrade.
if you haven't seen
No.
Se7en, you should watch it.
You should.
Yeah, check it
Any
out.
way
Even-
possible.
Yeah, any way
Yes.
possible. Yeah.
If you don't watch it, Kevin Spacey might be in your room tonight.
Hey,
might
he's
That's
done that.
fucking
He-
alarming
he
for
got
so many
accused of that.
reasons.
Hey,
Oh
hey,
my
he got-
god, it is.
He got accused of that.
Yes.
He got accused of that.
Hey,
Okay?
hey, don't knock the man. I
Hey,
mean, you can
that
knock him
killed
down
his
all you
career.
want, but
That killed
you
his
can't
career.
knock his acting career.
He does have a good acting career. All his personal shit aside.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't, heed the spoiler warning at the start of the video, then I would still recommend watching the film and keep an eye out for the stuff we talked about. As always, I find that watching films after knowing more about them actually sometimes is better than seeing them for the first time, because you learn to appreciate more about it.
I
Mhm.
agree.
All right, well, that concludes this episode, and we hope to see you guys next time. If you enjoyed, make sure you like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe if you feel so inclined, and
yeah.
we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.
Hey.
Yeah.